Hello and welcome here from Cologne in Germany. It's time for a tutorial about the hashtag Create Your Light. And with this video we want to actually work with the two cameras sitting here on the table waiting to be used. And it's all about the topic of the upcoming holidays. So as you can see, the background is already nicely prepared. We're sitting here in our studio kitchen. So this is actually, we are staying at home right now. But there's one thing we have to get started with. And it's a present. My team, they must really hate me. You're probably gonna see why. But they told me I have to wear their present. And I think I better get changed. It's magic. No, it's actually not magic. It's ugly. But, well, they asked me and they forced me, so let's get back to the topic of photography. What we are going to do within this tutorial is a lot. So better we play a bit back to the future and see what is going to happen within the next minutes. And the topic of everything today and within this video is going to be the holidays. So all the pictures are holiday pictures. Can you say that? Holiday pictures? Let's roll it. I hope that within those few seconds you could already see how much effort we put in the tutorial and how much ideas we want to show within the next minutes. I want to be polite and I want to introduce myself because I didn't do this up to now. My name is Krolop. I'm a professional photographer based in Cologne here in Germany, and I'm really sorry for my English because, as you know, German is my mother tongue and English is not. But I'll just try my best. The tutorial. And this is also very interesting because Nikon asked me to do another hashtag Create Your Light tutorial, now in English. I did a first one in German, and I was super willing to do it because I think it's an amazing idea to just show what good quality gear, basic quality gear, and a lot of ideas, creativity, and knowledge can do. And this is what I think is super important. As I told you, I'm a professional photographer and I don't actually like the word professional because it always suggests that you have to have this or you need to do this, and it's more about, well, I earn money by taking pictures. But actually it's not the thing I love with photography. I think photography is kind of a hunting. It's you go out with the camera and the lens and you have ideas in your head and then you try to find the best spot, the best way of photography, of photographing a thing, an object, a landscape or whatsoever. And it's more about being creative, having knowledge and having a good eye for the right moment. And exactly, this is what hashtag Create Your Light is all about. It's about having, for instance, the Z50 or the Z5 and their kit lenses or whatever. We're going to mostly use the kit lenses and for some pictures we're going to use some special lenses. But actually, I want to focus on basic gear and then having the right creativity. Create your light. It's not create an own camera or own a better camera. It's create your light and create your idea. So I'm so looking forward to the next minutes, and it's so much fun to be creative and to be freely creative, to not have someone behind your neck and telling you what to do, but rather than your own head telling you what you like and what you have to do this way and that way. So let's get started with the first idea, with our first under sub tutorial. Let's call it like this. I want to start with the first setup and the first idea and talk about the motive, the subject you take pictures of. I think a lot, as a photographer, you always aim for the big and epic things to take pictures of, like the vast, epic Alps and the snow-covered tops of the mountains. And when you have something very usual and very normal, it's not that interesting. And I think it's wrong, because most of the time, the most amazing pictures lie straight in front of our nose and are just not recognized by ourselves. I think it's very important to look at the usual and everyday objects with a different point of view. And I think as a good photographer, your knowledge and your ability to take pictures, your lighting and straight up your creativity should enable you to take amazing pictures of very usual and normal things. So this is why I start here, the first idea, with something super simple. We have this twig of berries and we have the twig of fir tree. We call it Tannenbaum in Germany, fir tree. It's something which is super connected to the holidays and to changing of years, and something when you look at, you say, okay, I know what it's all about. So let's take a beautiful and amazing picture of this very usual and everyday twig of berry. First of all, it starts with arranging and the overall idea. There are two aspects I want to take you into. I want to show you. It's color and lining, arranging in the framing. First of all, you have to take care that your colors are nicely and aesthetically set. In this case, we have red and green, and on a complementary color scale, they are fairly close to being complementary colors, not 100% close, but they're amazing color contrasts which look nice and neat and very aesthetic. And then when you look at the camera, by the way, a Z5 with a 24 to 50 millimeter lens, you've seen how I've arranged the whole setup. It's a diagonal arrangement. It comes from the top left corner, goes down to the right bottom corner. And again, arranging with diagonals is very nice for the human eye. It's just kind of nice to look at. It's neat, and it's not that symmetric, boring, but it's still some kind of cleaned up framing. So first of all, this could give me, and I'm in P mode, as you can see on the here on the top there. I'm in P mode. If I take a picture right now here, it's going to give me a nice and beautiful picture. But again, I want to have more. This is glycerine. And glycerine has another tension. Well, how to explain it very easily. The drops, water drops, they're kind of stiffer water drops. Let's say it like this. They hold longer and they form better drops. And now it's already over because it's too long. But in general, you can buy it as at a pharmacy close by. And you can just spray it with a normal cosmetic sprayer, and it holds better drops on everything, on every surface. And you get better reflections, you get better lighting, it gets more beautiful. It's more interesting to work with reflections. So again, if your subject is not interesting, make it interesting. And again, when I think about winter, I always think about wet, rain, a fireplace, something not dry and summerish. So having the wet look is perfect matching as well. Okay, and then how can I light this? Right now we have a window light, but I have to tell you something about the window light which is very important and which you should keep in mind for the rest of the tutorial. In this case, we positioned a very strong artificial light source outside the house to give us 24/7 beautiful lighting for the whole production. So if I switch it off right now, it's going to be dark. There's another film light there, which are going out now. Now. And now it's totally dark. So we can switch it on again. Keep that in mind that we have a normal window with a continuous light source outside. This is the way we do productions and filming, whatever. But it's actually a normal window. You could close the curtains or the blinds. Everything is super normal. And then you should have shadow or a dark room inside. What I want to is actually go into manual mode of my camera and dial a fairly long exposure and close down the aperture and have the ISO speed also down to 100. So when we switch off the light now, again, it's going to be a really black image. So now I have to take care of my light source, and I'm doing this very simply with my mobile phone. No, I'm not using the torch of my mobile phone. I'm not using this. I can, as you can see, but I'm using a different lighting. I'm using an app to make the screen appear in a specific color. I can make it red. It's completely red because my mobile phone is red I can even make it green, which looks really not healthy at all. But now the screen is green, or I can make the screen plain white, which is totally fine to give me the lighting I want. And why I'm doing this is because the mobile phone already is a bigger light source rather than the small and harsh light source of the torch. So what I'm doing now is I have 4 seconds to move the light source and to make it even bigger. I can explain how I do this, but first of all, I want to explain I'm using the self-timer on my camera, and with the Nikon camera you can choose if you have 2 seconds delay, 5 seconds, or even 10 seconds. I'm too lazy to use 10, and 2 is not enough, so I always go for the 5 seconds. And what I'm doing now is I'm pre-focusing on the area I want, releasing the trigger, and then I'm moving the light source. And by moving the light source, you make it bigger. As you can see, the light source is really, really, really big. What do I mean when I say big? I can show you once again. It adds. When you move the light source, every position is added to the single picture. And in this case, when you look at the picture, I have a huge light source behind. But it's actually not huge, it's just like moved within the 4 seconds exposure time. So it adds up. Let's switch on the light again, because I want to explain what I actually did for the final shot. I can show you on the previous shot here. As you can see, the left side is fairly dark, and the background as well is also too dark. So I used a second phone, one of my team members' phone, and I installed the same app. There are several apps to have like a screen, torch, flashlight, whatever. And I dial it to a warmer temperature, so a warmer color. In this mobile phone, I have the plain white, and in the other mobile phone, I use the orange. And I have the white on top and the orange coming from the side on the back to have a bit of a fireplace feeling. You know, again, it's holiday. And a fireplace is always very related to the whole subject. So I had a warm color coming from the left down corner into the framing. And that's around it. You get amazing pictures. The quality is super, super crispy, sharp. The aperture of 16:11 is a bit too close down for that case, but I'd rather have a bit of longer time to move the mobile phone than to have a smaller aperture. But again, using this combination of tricks gives you an amazing, amazing pictures. Next step, this. I think the English wording is fairy lights. It's one LED light after each other, and it's connected to a small battery pack, so you can switch it on and switch it off, and you don't have to plug it into the power into the wall. And now we can play with bokeh in our next shot. So let's do it. Fairy lights are something to be very carefully with because of some potential Instagram fairy lights overload. But still, there are fancy light sources which actually are pretty common during the holidays. In the beginning, they're still in the box, but later on they are on the tree. What I just wanted to show you was that photography is also about craftsmanship. Let's say it like this. I have a wire here and I put it around the lens and formed a kind of holder for the fairy lights. And my aim was to have a around 10 centimeters long holder for the fairy lights to be positioned away from the lens. This lens, it's a 50mm 1.8 lens, and this is a Z5 camera, so a full frame camera. And I want to take pictures at f1.8. f1.8 gives me a very shallow depth of field, but it also enlarges bokeh balls. And those bokeh balls, they work perfectly with the fairy LEDs and the fairy lights. The point I want to explain here is that when you have the LED lights very close to the lens, the balls, the bokeh balls get very big. The further you get away, the smaller they get. You can open the aperture to make them bigger, but still, the further away you are, the smaller they get. So if you have them on one position only, they're all the same. They kind of don't form that three-dimensional depth or that feeling of depth in the framing. So what I try to do is to form a tunnel of the fairy lights and to have the lens photographing through that tunnel. In the end, I ended up with kind of a diagonal arrangement of the lights again, because I wanted to enlarge and emphasize that one diagonal through the framing. But still, I had that tunnel, and the bokeh balls, they get smaller while being further and further away from the front and the tip of the lens. So this way, with a bit of knowledge and a bit of craftsmanship, you can make the image way more depthy and way more three-dimensional than only putting them in front of the lens. And by the way, I had a second of this one is the front, you can see here. And the other one, which is positioned around, should be something around here. This is for the back. So front and back. I use two of them. By the way, when you buy those fairy lights, always take your camera with you and always make the following test. You switch the camera to manual focus mode, and then you hold the LED lights really close to the lens, and then you have a very close look at very normal aperture speeds around 125 of a second or 250 of a second. So with that normal everyday speed when you take pictures, then you look at the result, and when you see those lines moving up and down and whatsoever, then you should not buy those fairy lights. Always look for flickering free lights. In general, if they only have one color, they're better than when they have multiple colors and can be dimmed and whatsoever. I don't know why, but this is a general advice. Try to look for those with only one color temperature, only one strength of power, and then still make the test. I can show you a kind of okay negative test. Those balls in the background, they give those lines. You can see them, and they're moving very slowly, but they're only moving in those little spots. So in this case, they are not as strong, and we're only using them in the background, so you can't see it in the final result. And when you have those kinds of fairy lights, you'll see it. So always look out for the right fairy lights. Oh, but by the way, this is just a kind of upgrade of the last set. I actually had something different in mind. So let's get this going with the fairy lights. Sometimes it's really good to have kids. No, it's always good to have kids, but sometimes it's just amazing what they're using. And this year I had a lot of time spending at home, and I saw something very interesting my son was using, small son, a punch, and a very special punch. And he played around with those paper and created some nice fancy artwork. And I saw him like making those templates, and I was like, whoa, okay, cool, I have to have this. I can show you because we want to upgrade our bokeh balls. And I guess you already know where we are going, but I can show you nonetheless. Let's explain the basic setup first. So we have the camera here, Z50, 50mm 1.8 at 1.8, and then we have the setup. It's some old fancy wooden boxes, and the center of the whole image is going to be that fruit, that special star fruit. I don't even know the English name. In case I don't know it, we just put it down below the video. And it's my mobile phone again with the torch. So the torch is lighting the fruit. In the background we have the LED lights, the fairy lights, and they're creating bokeh balls. And we have a very, very nice looking bicolor scheme. So we have a more bluish light on the front and then a yellowish warm light on the background. And then we have the depth in the image and everything is looking super cool. So actually this would give us a nice looking picture. But back to the punches. Oh, I can show you. Those punches are really special because they are creating super fancy templates. In this case, it's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And in this case, it's some fancy, nice looking snowflake. It's called snowflake. And they're fairly big. And what I've done is I've created my own templates to use with the lens. So look carefully. Look at the background. And I'm making it a bit brighter at the beginning because I already know it takes away some light. And then pew, it's on. Wow, it's super fancy. Now we have snowflake light bokeh balls in the background. And we played around with all those punches, and you have even a fat Santa, who's wearing probably the same pullover as I am, and star, some tree, and snowflake and the reindeer. So with having such perfect templates, you can play around a lot. The point is, and this is what I'm actually trying to explain, is if you try to use the knife and you try working on the paper, you're either a neurological surgeon or you're just creating those templates like this, and they don't look good because you need to get those 1000% perfect things. Is it working with the focus now? Perfect. Great. Nikon power autofocus. So it's super amazing. And again, it's nothing I would do in real life photography. But again, when my wife saw the pictures for the first time, she was like, wow, how did you do that? And I guarantee this is something which is super amazing because it can't be done with a mobile phone. And it's totally unique. And it's kind of hard as well. And very important for you to remember, don't put this away from the lens. You know, if you put this away from the lens, like a centimeter even only in front of the lens, you're gonna get some fancy results because then you won't get the whole effect of the template. So you will have a half-cut template, a half-cut snowflake or whatsoever. So, and you're also getting a terrible vignettation in the frame. The closer you get to the lens, the best is if you really touch the front lens with the paper. Don't worry, it's not gonna break at all. If you really touch the front lens with the paper and with the template, then it's perfect. So that's it. It's amazing. It's just like magic. Again, my son had to let dad borrow some things of him. In this case, it's a toy racing track. And let's start with Destination Namibia. We produced a kind of TV series for photographers, and the second one went to Namibia. Sorry for all that talking. But in Namibia there we did a car-to-car shot because we had a guide, Rainer, and we were so happy to have him with us that we wanted to give him a present of his car and make a very special photograph for him. So we actually positioned a camera onto our car and drove in front of his car and used SnapBridge to make all the pictures and to take pictures while the camera was hanging on 2 meters height in the back of our car. And And it was just astonishing because we actually got a couple of shots which are super nice, which have him driving around Namibia, have like fancy foreground, and the ground is moving at in like high speed, you know. This car-to-car shot method, you can actually adopt it to a kind of smaller size here. And this is what I'm actually planning to do here, or what I actually already did. I have two cars. One is the Mustang with the 29 and one is the Mustang with, I can't see it anymore. And actually we have a kind of very uncool variation or relation from the camera to the car, but it doesn't matter. It's just like the car is important because the camera has to do what? Exactly, roll in the same speed as the actual car you're gonna be taking pictures of. So think about a plane. You're sitting on a plane and there's a pen or your food in the plane, and nothing is moving at all. So the food stays on your table in front of you. But hey, both objects, you and the plane, and by the way the food, everything on board of the plane is traveling the same speed. So it's just a question of relativeness of speeds. When you move with the exact same speed, there is no movement at all. Only the background and the foreground and the ground itself, they will move. And this is the theory and the way car-to-car shots work. If you drive exactly the same speed and you keep distances, then you can actually achieve having the one car you're taking pictures of being completely sharp and crisp, and the foreground and the background really moving like a long time exposure. And doing this in toy size, it's super funny. I used a wire, it's not a wire, it's a string. It's a nylon string, I think to catch fish. And when you position both strings at both cars and you pull both cars, then they actually move. If you are moving too slow, they're gonna be like, because the engine has a friction, they're gonna stutter and not move on a really common pace. But if you just move it like this, both objects are moving the same speed. And now it's only about triggering the camera, and we're using SnapBridge again, because with SnapBridge you can see what the camera is doing and you can control the camera and you can actually trigger the camera. And then about the exposure time. So we actually used exposure times around 1/10 of a second, or in longer times 1/2 of a second. It's very critical. You want to have a long exposure. The longer the better. The longer, the more speed you get. But the more risky it gets. The shot can get blurred because the camera is moving this way or this way. So by the way, having a image stabilization is very useful in this types of photography. But again, you have to find a good balance. It depends on the speed you're moving. If you're moving slow, you need a longer time. If you're moving very fast, you need a shorter time, and so on. So the point is just give it a go. Try it and do it again and again, and try to be more precise every time you do it again. If you have only blurred shots, then go to a short exposure time. If you have very sharp shots and everything is perfectly sharp every time you take a picture, make it longer and try to get it more speedish look. By the way, the fairy lights in the background, they're kind of a racing light, and we had some smoke from a little smoke machine to be even give this impression of the tires burning and getting the smokes of the tire. So we played around a lot, and it's just amazingly funny. And time goes by, and you take one picture, and everything is cool because it's so challenging. Again, by the way, I already saw one picture, and my son did as well, and he already asked for a picture to be printed out. And that's you know, we're doing a lot of productions for customers, and yes, they do say thank you a lot of times because they are nice people. But you know, having someone ask for a print, or wanting the picture to be printed out, to be looked at all the time, it's something special. And even, or especially when it's your son, then it feels kind of even better. So without getting too sentimental, let's get to the next shot. This was really great fun. You have to try it. Try it out. And by the way, you can play it afterwards. Our next exercise and the next topic is about creating connections, and I mean visual connections. I'm talking about things within your frames and within your pictures that give your viewer of the pictures a certain message. For instance, the pullover I'm wearing, this is, I'd rather say, a very strong visual cliche, and it actually tells you a story. There's nothing written on it. It's just a pullover, but the textures, the symbols and the colors and the type, it is knotted. It just screams 24th of December and not like March or April. And this is exactly what makes visual cliches, I'd call them, so strong. That in a picture, in an image, you can, as a photographer, direct the viewer. And the best example is behind me. Actually, the idea was to take pictures of red apples, and I've never seen an apple like this. It's super artificial, but it's actually a real apple. Well, okay, we'll try it later. And we actually made a test to put the apple on a blue backdrop, and the picture we shot. This is not a December picture. It could be a June picture because of the blue, which is actually a visual connection to summer, to blue sky, to good weather. So it is supposed to be a summer apple. But we want to have a winter apple, and we could do this with snow. But again, it's more about searching for little things within the frames to actually give 1, contrast, 2, texture, 3, color, and 4, that's what I'm talking about, the visual connections, the association with a certain topic. And let's have a look. Let's have a look at the Z5. By the way, 50mm 1.8. It's dialed to 1.8 because I love the bokeh in the background and I love the blurriness. And when we look through the camera, we can actually see a lot of visual cliches which give this image the winter feeling. It's the berries, the coconut, the candy canes, the pine cones, cinnamon. It's everything within, like I have to say, I have to be careful with pronouncing it, fir tree twigs. Is it? Fir? Oh, it's so hard to say. I'm sorry. But like, the whole image screams winter and December, and everything is nicely arranged on a very dark background or a backdrop, and everything is wooden, earthy, and so on. Concerning the light, we are again using an LED light, 5500 Kelvin of color temperature. It's used with a 40 by 40 centimeter softbox, and as you can see, it's very close to our apples, and it's slightly aiming away from the actual apples to give a more homogeneous and more spread out lighting. It's a trick called feathering, where you don't aim for what you're actually lighting, but like you're aiming beside the actual target you want to light, you want to expose, and therefore you get a much more even exposure on the total of the scene. Yeah, this is, by the way, one thing I really love using, because when you don't have a dimmable and switchable window light, which is usually not the case if you're not doing a production like this, then you are rather, you have to find something to light and to expose and to give a perfect lighting for your subject. So an LED light and a small softbox is actually like a window. It's a portal window, which is also very useful when you have no sunlight outside. Okay, so that's it. That's the point. Look for connections. Look for whatever gives your image a clearer voice. Let's say it like this. And choose your language wisely. Deep within my heart, I am a portrait photographer, and it wouldn't be my tutorial, even if it's hashtag create your light and even if it's like for Nikon and together with Nikon. No, it wouldn't be my tutorial without one at least portrait setup. So once a year, the family comes together, and I'm always kind of surprised how people changed over the year. And sometimes they not only look different, but they change their appearances completely. And I think that this time of the year is one of the most interesting times where you take pictures of your friends, of your family, and even if it's only your close family, this year still, I think it's super interesting to take pictures. And I have one setup, which is, I think, the most amazing portrait setup I know. It's the most simple, the most effective, the most astonishing, and the most reduced setup of all. You don't need a lot. You need a camera and you need a backdrop. It's not a special backdrop. You can see all those, it's very thin. It's not even a special photo backdrop. It's just a black cloth. This is in the back, and there's the window. So what you need to have is to find a room where you have a big window covered with curtains, like translucent curtains, and then you need to close all the other windows and doors and shut down all other light sources. So there has to be only one light source within the room, only one, and that's the window. And don't mind if the curtains are not that translucent or a bit more translucent. It doesn't matter. It's just like no direct sunlight onto the face. That's the most important part. And then you just start taking pictures, black and white. Let's start with the camera first. So I'm going to explain what I'm doing with the camera. I'm switching the camera on, and then it's set picture control. It's when you press the I button, and then you already see I selected monochrome. What is special about that picture control is that you can still further individually adapt the style you want to have. And actually I like a bit less contrast, because I think the aim of that photo setup is to show the face. I know there are photographers outside, they're saying, yeah, you need a separation light onto the hairs, and you need a depth of field, and you need to have something behind the model, but no, you don't. If I want to show the face, only the face, and perhaps the chest or the front of the person, then I don't need to show all of the rest. So in this case, I need a bit less contrast, because some people, especially when they don't have a professional makeup, they have a bit of sweatiness or a bit of grease on the forehead. So having less contrast is just a bit more charming to the people. And then you can also play around with filter effects. Don't worry, it's not like colorizing the picture, it's like filtering the different channels. So just feel free to play around with it. I told you that I personally like charming pictures. I don't want them to look and say, oh God, how do I look? So I reduce the contrast. Normally I like contrast as a photographer, but as the person being photographed, I don't. And then you're ready to go. And by the way, let's talk a bit about the lens, the 50mm lens. But let's go to the wall first, because I want to do some drawing. The main setup, and that's just how you set it up. It's the window. And then you have your camera. The camera is supposed to be really inside the window. When you look at the videos of me shooting, I was like fighting against and leaning against the window, because the closer you get into the window, the more direct the light gets. And then you have the model or the person you take pictures of, and she or he is not sitting here, it's behind the window. So if you have an imaginable line, it's not here, it's behind. And the backdrop is even further behind. So this is the setup. You have the window. One very important thing, camera inside the window. Second important thing, person being photographed behind the window, not inside that area here. And then you're ready to go. And by the way, if you look up here, the first one is, by the way, the 50, and then this is the kit lens. The kit lens only goes to 5.6. If you go to 50mm, And you should not go to a very wide angle style because it's not charming as well. So if you want to take pictures which are charming, then go to 50mm or 35, but not lower than this. You can see the difference. The f5.6 gets you a longer exposure time and even a higher ISO speed. So if you use the f1.8, you can go down to ISO 100 and even have enough light left to do 1/25 of a second. And by the way, I know it's not 100% matching, but it doesn't matter because when you take pictures, the sun will probably be like a bit more covered in clouds and less. So it's going down, up and down, around a quarter or half on the f-stop. So that's it. When you shoot pictures, then try to keep in mind that it's for the people you take the pictures and it's not only for you. So be charming with your pictures, have them looking straight into the window, and then you're ready to go. And by the way, if you're wondering who is that beautiful woman which I took pictures of, this is Sarah. She's working for me. She's one of the team members, and she's actually working on Create Your Light. And she's actually here with the production and doing the video. But to be fair, there are more people involved. So let's take pictures of all of us and let's see how this is going. And you're probably going to see at the end that this setup is so simple and so reduced that it's actually focusing on the person, on the eyes, on the face. And it's just plain, it's amazing. If you want to have some background, you can still use a white cloth or a gray, whatever you want, but I would not. Once in a year, all the family comes together, and I actually shoot a lot of pictures for my family. I shoot very, very usual photos, like my sister and their kids and them playing with my kid, and then my mother, grandmother and grandfather. And there are a lot of pictures happening around those holidays, very normal pictures. And there's something which I always find really interesting, that when you are as a photographer looking at pictures, you sometimes think, oh, this is not cool and this is not very fancy. But when you are interacting with non-photographers, they sometimes, or most of the time, cherish what you don't like the most, like kind of the opposite way around. And with this, it's kind of 100% the same. We're using the fairy lights and we're creating a ring like this. And we're holding this ring in front of the camera and facing the camera towards a black background. Any cloth will do, like complete black, but any cloth will do. And then we're closing or shutting down all the lights around, and we're only taking pictures of those bokeh balls. Manual focus, focus to infinity, and holding the lights close to the camera will give you the biggest bokeh balls. And then the ring has a reason. You want to have the middle, the center of the image being completely black. Because now, with those homemade manufactured bokeh balls, you can just blend them over in Photoshop or any other software, retouching software. It's very simple. You have the basic picture, which is like a normal picture of, for instance, me in the middle, in the center. And then you add the second picture, one with the bokeh balls, and then you go to this to the blending modes of the layer, and you just put them to screen. And like magic, everything which is black, and this is the reason why we need the black background, will disappear completely, and only the bright images and the bright parts of the images will be overlaid onto your basic image. So this will give you a super fancy looking final picture, and something you as a photographer might not really cherish, but I promise you, this is something a lot of people on the planet will love you for. And it's super easy to be prepared. Try to make some different overlays, something being very close, something a bit further away, so with bigger and smaller balls. And it's perfect to get the image more cleaner and to get rid of some unnecessary surroundings. Let's call it like this. Try it out. create your own homemade bokeh balls and put them onto your pictures or onto some other pictures and just enjoy the reaction of the people. I know that there are apps, but there's an app for everything in the world right now. It's nothing, this has nothing to say. It's just more about, it's kind of like pride. And pride as a photographer tells me to not use an app to create bokeh balls, but to photograph them myself. The following idea is not only photographic, but it's coming together with Photoshop. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of using Photoshop in photography, but on a commercial aspect and on a question of possibilities, Photoshop is super amazing and you can do some things which you can't do in photography. And one thing I want to do is that I want to be very little and be inside my picture of the table. I'm not sure if you know what a snow angel is. You just drop down backwards into the snow and then you move your arms and your legs and then there is this specific shape appearing in the snow. And actually, I was wondering if I can retouch myself into that cookie set, because the cookie is made mainly out of flour and you can do this, or you could do the flour angel, but then you need to have like a lot of flour and that would be a waste of flour. So, well, we have to retouch. First of all, I need one basic tabletop setup. It's a top shot setup again with a tripod. I'm using the Z50. The kit lens, it's a 30th of a second, f5.6 and ISO 100. So the focal length is about 18 millimeter. So it's a very wide angle top shot. And I arranged everything around the center of the image, which is actually the flower # snow angel. And then I have all the cookie accessories. Okay, some cinnamon is, I don't know. Oh yeah, there are cinnamon cookies, but like there are no fir tree cookies. Everything is around winter and snow and holidays. And I'm gonna be talking about the light in a second. Everything you need to take care of is that you have the center of the image being covered with snow, and then you slowly start to shape the kind of angel into the flower, and then you take one picture. The final picture looks really interesting, but there is no human inside and there's no angel and there's nothing inside. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking another picture of me, obviously not on the table, but rather outside. And then I'm going to Photoshop myself into that image. I'm going to explain that as well. We're going to do a little bit of Photoshop in a few seconds. But first we have to talk about the light, because there's a reason I used the light like this. I have to retouch two pictures together. And it's always very crucial to have the same light. And I'm just going to draw a sketch for you to understand even rather better. This is the snow. So there's Martin lying on the ground. Don't laugh. And then it's the camera here. It's the tripod. Boop. So I need to find a light outside where I can use the same lighting. And normally, what do we have in winter? A lot of clouds. So most of the time we have thick clouds in winter, at least in Germany, and the sun is covered with clouds. So I'm kind of using the same light. I'm using, what else can I use? The pink. I'm trying to get the same lighting as I will have outside when photographing the same shot when we have a cloudy day. So this is actually the softbox. You can understand, it's like the softbox is the same as the clouds. I could use different lighting coming from the side, but then I would have to wait for the sun going down or up, and never, 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 never try retouching two pictures together where the light is not fitting. So this is the way which is the easiest way. It's just a plain softbox, like a plain covered sky, and it's very easy to retouch later into the picture because there won't be any shadows. As you can see on my hand, like, yeah, there's no real shadow. I have ugly hands and I touched the flower. So I should probably stop now and then take the picture outside of me doing the snowy thing in my pullover. We're here now in Photoshop, and as you can see, I already shot the second picture. As you saw, I totally used a normal street underground. There are tires in the back of our studio, so like in the backyard. I'm sorry. I'm lying on the ground, and the camera was positioned with a pole on top of me, and I was using again Snap Bridge to control and to trigger the camera. So I have the second picture, and now I have to combine both. As you can see, I opened Photoshop. I know that there are other options to do this in a different type of software, but I have to use one, and I'm working with Photoshop every day, so I'm using Photoshop. But I want to stick to the most basic functions, and I actually want to explain what you need to do, not how you do it in Photoshop. So first of all, I need to separate me from the background, and as you can already see, it should be fairly simple because the background is gray, and I'm kind of colorful, and everything is nicely lit because I've been using the same top light. So it's select and subject. This is an automatic separation, and actually every software I know so far has this type of intelligence. So what I'm pressing now is Control C, going to the other picture, Control V, and as you probably can see, I'm not quite fitting the size, so I have to transform myself into the proper size. The light is not 100% correct, so you have to be doing some minor adjustments on the color and on the contrast, but first of all, this is what you have to do. To make it more natural, you have to include a type of shadow. And I'm doing this by just double clicking on the layer, opening the layer style, and then you have a drop or a outer shadow. You can use both. Drop a shadow is going to one direction only, outer shadow is going like in all directions. And I'm using the drop shadow. So this is it. I can activate and deactivate it. As you can see, now I'm getting a type of shadow, and actually it's perfect. It's fitting perfectly, and I would just press OK. So what I've done now is I have added a form of shadow, and actually now things should be quite okay. If I do some more contrast on top of it, I think the result will be quite okay. Keep in mind, there is more to it than just 1 second. You can do more corrections. Sometimes you have to distinguish certain colors and check the white balance again. So as always, retouching and finalizing the images in Photoshop can take hours. It can take days, but I think it actually suits my purposes quite well. And I'm totally fine and happy with the result. Our next photo idea is very appealing because of I think a very basic psychological principle. It is chaos. I think it's even a physical wording, chaotic appearance, I don't know, but it's the smoke coming from the candle. Something chaotic is not controllable. It's not you don't know where it is going. It's like fire or the waves. You cannot really distinguish when there will be a wave and where and what is it looking like. And it's exactly the same with the smoke. I have a very basic candle here, and I'm gonna light the candle, and then I'm gonna suffocate it or let it suffocate. And the best thing actually is to try to get the tip of the candle still burning or glowing, and then there will be a lot of smoke coming up. And this appearance of the smoke in front of a black backdrop is amazing. It's just looking so cool. It's very simple. It's something which is nothing special. Again, it's something you have in front of your face all the time, your whole day through or your whole life through, but you're never gonna realize how beautiful and how artistic smoke can be. So just gonna explain the lighting, because we're using here a 60 watt light. It's 60 watt LED light, and it's a small softbox which is 40 by 40 centimeters. And as you can already read here, the angle is 135 degrees. So this is very special. You have the camera here, the candle here, and the back. This is German, actually. I'm sorry. It's not supposed to be schwarz. It's going to be black. The black background, and you need to have the light positioned around here. The more you come from the back with your light, the nicer it gets. The more you're separating the white smoke from the background. And in this case, by the way, we're using the telephoto lens 50 to 1250 at around in between 135 and 200 millimeter. It's because you don't have a lot of space to come by the softbox. You only have a narrow piece of space from the background you can actually take the picture in. And this is the reason for the telephoto lens, because the angle of view is way closer than on a wide angle lens, obviously. And you can only, kind of, it's like a fillet out of the cow. You're only taking the one which is perfect, the one piece, and not the rest, which is the softbox. So coming to the camera settings, it's 160th of a second, f5.6 around, depending on the focal length, and an ISO speed of 800. And that's about it. I actually left it not black and white. I had it in neutral, but it's going to be black and white afterwards, because I think it is just a plain black and white picture. The candle is white, background is black, smoke is white. It's very artistic. And coming back to the beginning, I think which is the one thing which is appealing, or it's kind of an addiction. Once you start, you don't stop, because when you do it again, it's going to be different. Then doing it again, it's different again. And you do it again, and it's different again. And you get something even better, and you go like, okay, if I do it like 1,000 times more, often I get like 50 more and even better pictures. So you get seriously addicted to blowing, like lighting, suffocating, lighting. Oh, it's okay. It's again super. It's just so much fun. But please, oh yeah, now it's red. This is the one thing you should have, because now it's like glowing forever. And one tip, try to have as much of the candle rope, I'd say, as possible. I always go for like 2 centimeters, and then I'll go for another round, and then again. With the following, I would say, photographic tip, I would love to open a subtopic. And it's not about technique, it's not about doing things with the camera or the lens, it's just about plain and kind of honest photography. So what's following now is very, very personal. I have here 2 trays of cookies, homemade cookies. My wife made them the last days, the last couple of afternoons, together with my son, and they put into a lot of effort and work into those. I think it was like 10 different kinds of cookies. And they're kind of traditional, and some recipes from my grandmother and her grandmother, and it's very, 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 very familiar, kind of, you know, like familiar. I don't know if that's the right word, probably not. And I thought this was an amazing thing to do with my son, so I had the idea to take a picture of those cookies. And seriously, she did not do this for this photograph, and neither did she do it for the tutorial. Even if it's for Nikon, and I'm really proud to do it, she did not do it for them. She did it for us. And I want to give something back to her, because that's what actually relations are for, giving something back. And I think photography has the chance of giving something back, because, you know, she was in the kitchen and she was taking some pictures with her phone during making the cookies, and my son did some not disturbing things, I'd say, and she was like distracted again, and she didn't have any really cool pictures to send in our family WhatsApp group, and I think it's super boring for me to take pictures of cookies. Normally I take pictures of products and I'm getting paid, and it's not the thing I do when I'm free and I want to do it. Like, yeah, I'm looking forward to shooting cookies. This is exactly the point. It's exactly the point that sometimes we are into our world of photography. We want to climb that hill, do that shot there, photograph that model here, and try to get this animal into the frame. And it's always about us and our things and our way of working and how we want to have the pictures to look. And it's not about the actual reason for photography, kind of documenting reality in a nice way, I'd say. And this is an exercise for all of you viewers. I know it's super boring to listen to me, but I think you should think about it. Then think about it again. If you're doing photography the right way with your family and your friends, I think there are a lot of people in the world which love to get beautiful shots, and they are so happy. They say thank you, and they say even more than thank you. And there's so much coming back sometimes when you have someone being really happy about a picture. And I hope that my wife is really happy about that picture as well. So let's have a look. I connected the Z5 to the mobile phone, so we see SnapBridge, the remote control of the camera. And you can see a second exposure time, f11 and ISO 100. The white balance is on daylight, as I'm using a daylight LED, which is actually dialed down to 1%. Yes, 1% of the LED light, sufficient enough to cover the 40 by 40 centimeter softbox. But actually the exposure is controlled by the LED lights, those little bulbs within those balls. And no matter how strong my LED light is, they're not getting stronger. So if I want to have this yellowish, warmish look from those balls in the frame, I need to dial down the main exposing light because they're not getting stronger. Then I had the idea to make kind of a grid. You know, the cookies, they're all in a grid, 3 by 3, and you see the different sorts of cookie. I didn't use all of them because I actually wanted to have the mask guy in the corner. So I had the surrounding, and again, I used the trick from the last video to add some details. I think it's a beautiful picture. The light is coming from the left. It's warm and cold, so we have the bluish color of the background and the warm of the light of the LED light, and then of the cookies itself. So all I need to do is focus, and that's it. Done. By the way, this is called a top shot. Most of the tripods you're using, they're able to position the camera in a way that the camera can photograph straight down, like a bird. And this position is something super amazing because we're used to looking this way, or we're used to looking this way, but we're not used to looking like straight down, because if we do, we see our belly And if not, you see your feet. So you're never flying in the air. It's kind of the same thing why drone shots are super amazing. Because the top shot drone shots, they're really showing you that you're flying over the object. So enough talking. I think it was an amazing sub-tutorial, and for me it's super important to mention that this is actually something I really take care of. Every once in a while I ask myself, can I do something photographically good for someone? Is there someone in my surrounding which is looking forward to getting a present from me, even if it's only a picture? And don't think about only a picture as being little. Sometimes it's a lot. That's about it. We are done. Everything has to end, and so does this hashtag Create Your Light tutorial. I actually would love to go on forever because it makes so much fun to take pictures of those usual things. And I think this is the challenge to be a good photographer, is to have something. You don't have to travel to the end of the world to take amazing pictures. Sometimes the best pictures, they are straight in front of your face and you just don't recognize them. And I think, or I hope, that with this tutorial I could make someone cherish and party the power of a photo camera. I know it sounds totally, well, over, but you know, when I look back what we did in the last minutes, and I think my wife, she was super happy for the pictures of the cookies, and I think this is also photography. Taking pictures, giving them to someone, and enjoying their happiness. So, without further ado, I am sending my best wishes out to you. Be creative and, well, perhaps create your own light. That's it. Bye.